Hello, everyone. Good evening. Happy to see all of your smiling faces. My name is Dr. Stacy. I am so excited to have my guest on here this evening, Dr. Phil. I'm going to be interviewing him, and he has a lot of fantastic information to share with you about Lifewave's technology and about your health in general. He has been with Lifewave for over 3 years. So lots of experience, clinical experience, in using this technology with people. But before we get started, I have to share with you our disclaimer. And of course, I want you to hear a little bit about his background and his bio, who he is. So I'm not a medical doctor. Dr. Phil is not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in integrative medicine and functional medicine. He has his naturopathic and many other degrees I'm going to share with you here in just a minute. So we are not here to make any claims to prevent, treat, cure, or diagnose you with any diseases at all. If you have any questions in regards to your health, please get back with your healthcare practitioner or your doctor. If you're on medicines or pregnant or nursing, please check with the person that is responsible for your healthcare and ask them those questions. The information we're sharing tonight about Lifewave is for informational purposes only. And of course, we are going to be sharing valuable information to your health and your longevity. So with that, I want to share with you a little bit about Dr. Phil. So Dr. Phil was born and raised in Anderson, Indiana. I was born and raised in Evansville, Indiana. So just a hop, skip, and a jump south. And he is no stranger to emotional pain and loss. His father died at age of 42 of a heart attack that he now knows was preventable. His mother never remarried, and due to her struggles financially as well as health concerns, Phil spent 2 years of his childhood in a children's home. Through the years of shifting, moving, and anguish, there born a desire to help others and to help himself. So Dr. Phil has a bachelor's in biblical theology. He has a master's of arts in Christian counseling, a master of divinity with emphasis in Christian psychology and temperate therapy. He also has a doctor of naturopathy from the College of Natural Health in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is certified in biofeedback, training directly with Dr. George Grant, known as the top authority and ambassador of wellness in all of Canada, CEO and founder of International Academy of Wellness in Richmond, Ontario. He is licensed as a clinical pastoral counselor with National Christian Counselors Association, over 120 additional certified hours in drugless therapies, certificates of completion in nutritional response testing and functional nutritional assessment. He has spent 3 years as director of metabolics at one of the top 5 wellness centers in the country. 30 plus years of experience and study in wellness prevention and rejuvenation. He's a published author, radio and talk show guest, and he has been heard by thousands across the country. He's published articles in science and medical journals, as well as peer-reviewed, has been a peer reviewer of published studies. So many fantastic things, so many amazing credentials. Thank you, Dr. Phil, for being here. So our listeners love when I have someone on as a doctor that wants to share their background, their knowledge, their expertise, and their application, of course, of using Lifewave patches. So I would love for you to give us that background, lay that foundation, as you were saying. And don't worry, all of Dr. Phil's information is going to be, I'll put it in the chat, and I'll also put it in the description section of this video that's recorded, so that way you can find him and contact him after if you're interested in learning more about what he does as a naturopathic doctor. So take us back in your history, and then of course I want you to bring us up to speed with Lifewave, how that entered your life and why you decided to utilize that.
Certainly. Well, thank you for having me. It is an honor, because most of the Lifewave people I meet have a great heart and they're really interested in helping people. And I'm blessed by that, because I can't say that that's always the case in every company that I've been involved with. As far as how I was introduced to this technology, about 3.5 years ago, Dan Martin actually brought these to me, which is a friend of mine here in Carmel. He knew that I was a naturopathic doctor and thought I might have some interest. I'm really not a skeptic. I'm open to things. And so I already understood energy medicine or quantum medicine. And so he wanted me to put these patches on. And I said, no, there's not enough wrong with me for me to measure it like that. I wasn't skeptical of it. I wasn't worried about the technology, but I took it to a friend of mine about an hour north of here, Dr. Anthony Pacelli, who is a 70-year-old chiropractor with third generation. He is studied directly under Kerry Reams and Dr. Clarence Gonstad, which you can look those guys up. They're iconic people. He has a master's in nutrition, doctorate in chiropractic, does a lot of work with laser therapy. And he said, I'll give these a try. I said, well, put them on your toughest cases for me if you would, and then report back to me on what you see. And so he did that. And about a week after he started using them, he calls me and says, how do I get more of these? Well, when a guy like Anthony Pacelli calls you and asks you for more of something after 1 week of using them, you know he's on to something. And so, to make a long story short, he said, listen, my wife had floaters in her eyes and they dissipated in 3 days. He had floaters, they were gone in 2 weeks. He put these on. He's also an avid muscle tester, which is applied kinesiology for you listeners who do not know what muscle testing is. He's a high-ranking muscle tester, and he said what's really unusual about this technology is it never tested negatively on any patient he used it on, which is really interesting for muscle testing. Most of the time, you're going to find something that doesn't test well. This didn't test poorly on anyone he tested it on. And he found that his nutritionals actually worked even better with the patch on the patient. They were more efficient. Sometimes they needed less of a dose. The body became much more efficient. And so Anthony Pacelli wasn't really interested in building the business side of this, and many doctors are not. And I tell people, don't let that discourage you if you're showing it to doctors. Just tell them, hey, that's a part of the way this company works if you want to build it. But if you don't, you can just sell it retail. Anthony Pacelli to date has sold over $90,000 worth of Lifewave patches, just simply retail. So to show you there is a market for people who just want to simply use it. But the testimonies just kept rolling in. People with urine flow problems, people with aches and pains, and the list just went on and on and on. And so this just began to expand. Now, because I work in the wellness field, it's a little easier for me to talk to doctors than some, but if you simply let them know that this has a patent, a US patent, that it is also scientifically validated, it is called photomodulation. You can look this up and study it. If you learn that famous people like Albert Einstein said that the future of medicine is in frequency, you can look that statement up. That was long before Lifewave was ever born. And so you can see there are many people that validate this work. It's not just something out of a gumball machine. That's something I want you to understand. And the foundation I'm going to lay this evening for our listeners, you're going to never be the same. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to lay a foundation for you to help you understand a little bit about what's going on in the United States with our statistics and our wellness approach. And you're going to learn a little bit more how some of the things that we doubt are the things we should more believe in, and the things that we have embraced and we believe in, we should doubt. We're very confused in the United States when it comes to wellness. And so I'm going to lay a foundation for that. But that's really how I got started. After that, even Dr. Pacelli said, hey, I want you to start wearing these. I said, I think you're right. So then I started wearing them. And the first thing I experienced was within the first 2 weeks, I had a really dark urine and very strong smelling urine. And I knew what that was because I'm trained in this. I knew it was a detox. I began to sleep better. Not that I was sleeping poorly, but I began to sleep better, which was good. And then my friend Mark Shelton, who is on the call tonight from here in Indianapolis area, he was sitting at lunch with me one day and he said, hey, what's up with your hair? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's a shade and a half darker than it was a month and a half ago. And I said, well, it must be the X39. And then I went on eating, and he said, well, hey, that's not good enough for me. You're going to have to tell me more about this. And so I began to talk to him a little bit about what I was experiencing. Now, I want all of our listeners to know that it's the body's innate intelligence that's making all these changes. The patches are simply helping the body do its work. And that's one of my biggest goals tonight, is to help you understand that nothing works unless the body can use it. The body has to get involved with anything you put in it or on it. And this is something most people don't understand. But I'm letting you know, because if you put this patch on a cadaver, they're not going to jump up and start running around. Although I've met some Lifewave people who are pretty excited about thinking this patch has that kind of ability. But if grandma's been dead for a couple of years, I wouldn't put this patch on her. But so I'm just letting you know it's the innate intelligence of the body that's using this technology. And I'm going to explain a little bit more how and why that works as Dr. Stacy gives me that opportunity. So is there anything else that you want me to say before I jump into that?
I think you're ready. We're all on pins and needles with our notebooks and pens ready.
Okay. All right. So I want all of our listeners to say this after me, and you don't have to turn your mics on, or you can if you want. Just say, after tonight,
After tonight,
I will never be the same.
I will never be the same.
I will never, never, never be the same.
I will never, never, never be the same.
And I will tell others.
And I will tell others.
Now, this is important because there are people that are dying in our country. They're dying. They're dying daily. I have several friends who have died in the last 5 years and they didn't need to die. They died because they didn't know what true wellness was. They just didn't know that Twinkies would kill them. Okay? They didn't know that. And they were thinking that if I take a little extra vitamin C once in a while, I'm going to be fine. But I want you to know that Dr. Stacy and Amy Holmesy and myself, all of us work more in the forefront of wellness, and we all agree on this. This is a tool, and it's an excellent tool. But if you don't understand how to keep yourself well, and you don't understand what's killing you, if you don't understand that the body was designed to run on real food, which is not food like Twinkies, you're not going to stay well even if you put the patch on. Now, David Schmidt has said this from the stage a number of times. He's a scientist. Scientists understand the whole picture, okay? So I'm going to lay this foundation. Listen closely to the stats here in the United States. USA is the sickest nation in the world. We're the sickest in the world. We have one doctor for every 8 patients. That's the best doctor-patient ratio in the world. The hospital industry is the 5th largest industry in the world. And in spite of that, we don't even rank in the top 40% for health. Not even in the top 40%. So why would we want to take the advice of most of the United States information in the health field? Why would we want to take that advice? I mean, if your financial advisor had that kind of ratings, you wouldn't be giving him your money. That's for sure. Okay? We consume more drugs, listen to this, more drugs than any other country, but than all other countries combined. We consume more drugs than all the other countries combined. Listen to this, ADRs. I want to talk to you about ADRs. Do you know what ADRs are? They're adverse drug reactions. In the United States, according to the National Organizations of Health, listen to this, ADRs, there are 175,000 deaths in 2022 alone. There were over 1.25 million serious adverse events reported in this same year. There are 6 emergency department visits for every 1,000 patients that take certain drugs. About 38% of such visits subsequently require hospitalization. Okay. In addition, 3 out of every 1,000 hospital admissions, a patient dies due to an ADR. 3 out of 1,000 die. Now you say, well, that's not that bad. Listen, if that was your mom or your dad or your son or your daughter, it's bad. It's bad. Adverse drug reactions. And that doesn't count many of the other statistics that I could get into. 75% of the people in the United States that are over 40 have a chronic degenerative disease. I'm going to say that again. 75% of people over 40 in the US have a chronic degenerative disease. You think this company doesn't have a market? You think that if what we were doing in the US was working, that number would be true? No, it would not be true. It would not be true. Number 1 killer in children 10 and under is cancer, second only to accidents. The number 1 killer in children 10 and under is cancer today, second only to accidents. That was not true in 1950. Why do you suppose that is? Well, some of our older listeners that are here tonight, you know why. In 1950, we didn't have so many chemicals. We have 80,000 man-made chemicals now. Many people back then were sleeping on feather beds. They weren't sleeping on fire retardants. We didn't have so many pesticides and glyphosate and paraquat and all the things that we have sprayed all around us right now. We have cleaners in our homes that are very toxic, very dangerous. If you don't believe it, just look it up. You can look it up, study toxicology a little bit and find out what's going on. We've got problems. One of the doctors that is going to be at our Orlando event, Dr. Jerry Weber, who's now gotten involved, he tells me he spends 75% of his work getting rid of poisons. 75% of his work getting rid of poisons in people's lives. Some studies suggest that cancer is up 700% since the COVID pandemic. Now, I want to read to you something. And the reason I'm doing this is because you people need to be energized as to why you might get involved with Lifewave, not just so you can make some extra money. Okay, there's more to it than that. There's a whole lot more to it than that. David Schmidt is under assignment. Those of you who know how to pray need to pray for this man. He's under assignment. He's born for such a time as this. We need him for this hour. This is targeted oncology. This is targeted oncology from a magazine called Targeted Oncology, Cancer Progression in 2023. Listen to this. As administrators and physicians and researchers at cancer centers, we are well aware of the significant impact that COVID-19 pandemic is having on cancer care worldwide. We are dealing with what I refer to as a ticking time bomb. This is Dr. Michael Zenner, MD, okay? He's saying this is a ticking time bomb. We're very well aware of how this has affected cancer, okay? Now, I'm just letting you know that we have to come up with some better ideas than what we have in the United States if we're going to expect people to live much longer, okay? So pay close attention to what we're talking about. Now, I'm going to lay a foundation upon which to build. These are statements that I've written down. I want you to remember these. Number one, your body is not impressed by where your doctor went to school. Just to bend over to pick up a pencil, your body has to talk to itself at 100 million signals a second. If you connect your DNA together, it will go from the earth to the sun, listen to this, 100 times. Your DNA would go from the earth to the sun 100 times. That's in one adult individual. Do you think, even if you have 3 PhDs from top schools, that you're smarter than this body? I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. I'm an educated punk. That's all I am, is an educated punk. All the paper I have on the wall doesn't even pales in comparison to how smart this body is. Okay? Number two, your doctor needs to be impressed with what your body is being schooled by. It's being schooled by innate intelligence. That's what we talked about earlier. Your body, by the way, has no idea how to be sick. Every symptom you have, a fever, rashes, diarrheas, your body's trying to save your life. Every time, every time, every time. Now, you get enough drugs in your body and enough poisons in your body, and the body becomes so confused that sometimes that innate intelligence doesn't carry out its duties as well as it used to. Just like any of us who get confused. I don't drink alcohol, but for those of you who do, and you've had a little bit too much once in a while, have you ever been confused? You probably haven't. Just think that's just one drug. That doesn't count 70, 80,000 drugs that might be in our bloodstream. Do you know that children are being born now with sometimes over 200 toxins in their bloodstream that come in through the third trimester because it passes through mom's umbilical cord blood to the child? I read an article recently that said almost all of our children are confirmed with plastics in their system as children. Plastics. Okay. The reason I'm laying this foundation is we can't win these battles with the scores we have in the US, being the sickest nation in the world, consuming all these drugs, bragging, talking about how wonderful we are. It's not true. The Hunza Indians, ladies, listen to this. You'll love me after this. You probably never have me back on again. The Hunza Indians and Himalayans, their women bear healthy children at 100 years of age. And it's well documented. See, you won't want me back after that. But also,
I'll support them in that birth.
But also, the good side is their women at 80 look 40 years old. Their women at 80 look 40. Okay, why? Look at how they live. They live off the land. They eat from the vine. They consume very little red meat. By the way, I'm not a big supporter of carnivore diets. I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. Okay, but these people get good sunshine. They walk. They have good social. They don't fight in their families. They're men. Listen to this. They live 130 years and die working, many of them with a clear mind. And they don't live in this so-called fantastic country with all of its health information. Now, we should be studying that and paying close attention to why that is. I'm going to explain a little bit about why that is in just a minute. Here's another one you need to remember. Health was here before money. Health was here before money. How do I know that? Because money doesn't buy health. I know millionaires that have come to me that are sick, and they have all the money in the world. You know why? Because they do all the wrong things. Money doesn't buy health. You have to know how to apply health principles. Your body is over 72% water. Your bloodstream is over 80% water. If you're drinking margaritas every day, your blood's probably not 80% water. It might be 50% margaritas. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. And just putting a patch on is not going to fix that. You understand that, okay? It's not going to fix that. So health was here before money. Health is inside your body, and if you support it with the right technologies and the right foods, your body's going to do fantastic things. Number 9, money has very little to do with health. care and staying well. If it did, we would be all supermen and superwomen, because here in the United States, listen to this, we spend more money on what we think is healthcare than any other nation in the world. More money. And yet we're the sickest nation in the world when it comes to degenerative disease. Now, make no mistakes, I'm thankful. I'm very, very, very thankful for emergency medicine. Because if I fall out of a tree or off of a bike or get hit by a car, I may not need a glass of carrot juice right away. Okay? I may need an emergency care, and we have some of the best in the world. But the problem I have with that, guys, is we're creating the emergencies. Most of the time, we're creating the emergencies, okay? Now, the next thing I want to do is talk about how do these crazy patches work. Have you had anybody say this to you guys when you've reached out and showed them this? How do those crazy patches work? That's ridiculous. And then you always hate to hear this. Let me ask my doctor or my sister's a nurse. Let me ask her, and you just shudder. You're like, oh my God, that's the worst thing you could possibly do, because it's like asking a plumber to fix a NASA spaceship. If you don't know anything about this, you cannot answer the questions. Okay? Hosea 4:6 in the scriptures say, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Well, that's for sure. We need some knowledge. So I'm going to show you that this is measurable. Guys, this is a picture. I want to hold this up so you can see it. This is a picture of an apple that's cut in half, taken by a picture of Kirlian photography, spelled with a K, Kirlian photography. You can look it up online. You can see it, okay? This is what real food looks like when you're measuring it with Kirlian photography. This has got light in it. By the way, that's how these patches work, is they work through light. I'm going to tell you right now, okay? What did Genesis say? What does Genesis say? God said what? Let there be what?
Light.
Light. That word there is not the sun. The sun was created on day 4. So if he said let there be light, what in the world was that if it wasn't the sun? I'm going to tell you that light was electromagnetic energy. That's exactly what it was. Now, why did God choose that? We don't know. We'll have to ask him someday. But until he changes his mind, that's exactly the way it's going to be. That's exactly the way it's going to be. People who are healthy have a lot of light projecting from them. I'm going to show you a picture of a human hand. This is a picture of a human hand that was taken with Kirlian photography. Look at that. Now, have you guys ever been around one of your relatives that you haven't seen in like 10 years and you say, wow, Miriam, you've lost your glow. What's up with you, Miriam? You've lost your glow. Well, there's truth to that. I want you to know it's not just a frame of speech. There's truth to that. You can actually lose your glow, because why? If you eat enough dead foods, you die. Every time you microwave and cook and fry and can and box, you're eating dead food. What happens when you plant a Twinkie, guys? What happens when you plant a Twinkie? You get a dirty Twinkie. That's it. You don't get anything else. Real food you can plant and grow, okay? Genesis 1:29 tells us to eat from the vine. Now here I want you to take a look at this picture of Kirlian photography. This picture here is another apple, and right next to it is a slice of meat. Now this meat, just so you know, is actually raw, and it has very little light projecting from it, very little light. If that was cooked, it would have none, zero, zilch. So what do you think is going to happen to these people that want to eat carnivore? Now, I won't have time tonight to go into all the reasons I don't support that, but for tonight, let's leave it at this. One of the reasons I don't is because there's no light in there. You came from light, and you need to eat light. Now I know I'll never be back. I've told you about 100-year-old women bearing babies, and now I told you to eat light. That doesn't mean you go out and eat light bulbs. Don't tell people I told you that. Okay, so I want you to understand that this is measurable, guys. It's not booga booga. You can actually measure this. It's absolutely real. It can be measured. And when you bring this photomodulation into the body's energy field, the body starts making more copper peptides and GHK. That's what the patent was all about. We're not claiming anything about what that will do afterwards. We're just letting you know that's what the patent is all about. But if you look up on pubmed.gov, which is our government medical site, and you look up this information about copper peptides and GHK, you're going to find the studies are already there. The studies are already there. This was before David Schmidt, even through God's divine help with his wonderful brain, helped him to assist here. And really what's happening, guys, there's nothing new under the sun. David Schmidt is just finding a way through God's guidance to bring back to us something that we had long before we destroyed this earth. Foliage used to project light. That apple I showed you just a minute ago, that apple was not from the Garden of Eden, just so you know. What do you suppose it would have looked like if it were, before we have done all the things we've done to our land? How many chemicals we put on our land? What do you suppose that would have looked like at that time? Okay? So as we're walking through this, I want you to know, if somebody says to you, well, I'm scared of trying those because are those FDA approved? You'll hear that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Well, then you need to look up all the drugs that are FDA approved that actually have often killed people or caused side effects. Now, remember, I'm thankful for emergency medicine, but I want you to listen to this for just a minute. I looked up the top drug for eczema right now. The top drug for eczema, it's called Dupixent, D-U-P-I-X-E-N-T. You can look this up yourself, Dupixent. Now, this is somebody who has eczema. My daughter used to have this before I learned why. It has nothing to do with an outside problem. It's all an inside problem. And through cleansing and raw juicing and enzymes, her skin's all fixed. Okay. And this was before I had X39. Okay. I'm not against X39. I've been using it for 3.5 years. It works wonderfully. It's great. But if you're going to keep poisoning yourself and you put a patch on, here's why I want you guys to think straight here. You're going to hurt the progression of the company, and you showing this to people. If you talk like that, they already think this is crazy. They're going to think you're more crazy if you don't understand the whole picture. They're going to think you're crazy. Okay. But now you have tools. You can show them Kirlian photography, you can show them it's measurable, you can show them a statement from Albert Einstein and all this stuff. So listen to this. There are over 15 side effects to Dupixent, just to make your skin look better. Look at this. One is toothache, one is cold sores, one is eye problems, upper respiratory tract infections, stomach upset, headaches, insomnia, conjunctivitis, gastritis, hypersensitivity, inflammation, diarrhea, sore throat, injection site reaction, dizziness, dry eyes, corneal inflammation, skin rash, fever, indigestion, and I'm going to stop there. That's all listed online as factual side effects from just a drug to fix your skin. And there are people that will run to get it. Now, here's the other thing that will scare you. I looked on Reddit just to read up on the people using this. One of the people that uses this said after insurance, get this now, you think patches are expensive? You think those are expensive? After insurance, this particular client or patient using Dupixent said, my cost was roughly $900 a month. $900 a month after insurance, okay? Only to get how many side effects, which may be worse than having eczema, which, by the way, just so you know, is a liver and an intestinal problem every single time. Every single time, the skin is a picture of the liver. And so I want you to understand that we have a market and that people are more hungry than ever to figure out what is wrong with this picture. More people are sick now. More people are having problems now, especially after COVID. Some of the doctors that I work with are medical. They don't know the answers. Some of them, they wish they did. We've had people that were neurologists literally say to us, I wish we knew what you guys know. I think I'm going to go back to school because I don't know what to do anymore. I have so many challenges that I don't have answers for my patients anymore. I don't have answers. So what I'm encouraging you to do is don't dismiss this technology. It's measurable. The body can use it. It's been proven to be able to use it. And because everything came from light in the first place, it shouldn't be that weird that we can return back to understanding what light does for us. Okay? All right? So I'm here for some more questions before we move further. What might those be?
Oh, fantastic. Well, we're getting some here in the chat. Someone would initially, when we first started talking, ask me a question about mold toxicity. You mentioned some different types of toxins. Do you have any suggestions or recommendations for detoxing from mold?
Well, mold is a big problem. In fact, many times when people think that they have other problems like Lyme's disease, for one, about 65% of the Lyme's diagnosis are wrong. They're actually mold, having the exact same manifestations. The problem with the mold is there's so many different ones, and we have to know where we're getting it from. Because even if we have remedies that we can use to get rid of it, we have remedies, and they don't have to be drug-based remedies. But the problem is, where is it coming from? And sometimes people don't realize it's something very basic. Like I've had people who got mold from mulch. Literally, they love to work around their house, and they often just like to put their hands in the mulch and just sprinkle it around and work with it and rub it around, and it seems all fun and wonderful. And years ago, back in the 50s and the 60s, before we had 80,000 man-made chemicals, maybe our bodies would have been able to defend against that. Maybe, okay? But today, our bodies aren't winning those battles anymore, okay? So one thing for sure, we have to know where is the source coming from, and that's not always that easy to discover. There are ways of doing that. You can seek out people who know how to look and measure for mold. Now, the way I test, I use a quantum scanning device to do my screening that measures frequency. So I'm all about it. And I can do this whether you're in Indianapolis or whether you're not in Indianapolis, because it can work through a Zoom link, literally. And I have clients in 8 different states. And so when we measure frequency, for instance, mercury vibrates differently than lead, lead vibrates differently than gold, and so on, and so do molds. They vibrate differently than viruses. And this is what Einstein's work was about. This is what Nikola Tesla was about, by the way, guys, if you want to look him up. And Dr. Royal Rife, who was probably one of the greatest scientists of any of close to our time. And in fact, he was so smart that I truly believe that whoever they may be, purposely took him out. They didn't want him here because he was so darn smart and ahead of his time. So first, we've got to figure out what this mold is, where it's coming from, and we do have remedies to take care of that. If you want to reach out to me further personally, like I said, my information will be made available to you, and you can reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you individually about how we can find out more of what's going on there. Yeah.
Fantastic. So she was asking also, as far as patch-wise, X39 Eon, would you also say glutathione SP6 could help support the body in that detoxification process with the gut? What else would you?
Yeah. Well, yes, glutathione for sure, because it's the most powerful antioxidant known to man. And I've had great experience with the glutathione patch in that it really does help the body make more glutathione very quickly. And I've used it even up against some really good liposomal glutathiones that go under the tongue, and it actually performs better. And so I think that's just great. But remember now, these are all support tools, and I'm glad about all of that. But we do have to figure where the source is coming from and see if we can eliminate that source. Where is this happening? I found this with people that live in apartments, because sometimes apartments, they keep, cleaning and cleaning and cleaning the carpets, but they don't want to replace them because of the money. And sometimes those apartments, the carpets are who knows how old. I mean, and there's just no way they cannot be a center for mold. So if you live in a home that is the newer homes that have the linoleums and things, you're better off, because you have less risk of molds by being able to clean your home with linoleums or with wood floors, I think, for sure. So yeah, but I do support that. I don't know. The SP6 might help because of how it affects the endocrine system. It might help, but I think that the glutathione is probably more likely to be a win. And of course, always X39 for sure, because of what we know about the body's ability to produce more stem cells because of the GHK and the copper peptide. Yeah.
So some of them are asking, you're referencing your frequency machine device. You're talking about an AO scan, correct?
That's correct. Right.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that. I've had that done several times. I have a friend that lives right down the road that utilizes that technology in her practice. So that is definitely a modality to seek out. That's very complex and detailed, and all the things that it can tell you about yourself. And of course, I am going to put your information again in the chat, and I'll put it on the comment section in the description here in our recorded video as well. But I love what you said about making sure you figure out what it is. So
Yep.
A lot of times people are like, well, number one, a lot of times people don't detox at all. There's tons of detox questions in the chat. So I'd like you to go a little further with that. Most people don't treat their body like they do their car. Their car, they change the oil every 3,000 or 6,000 miles. Right. They're changing, the tires, the rotors, the transmission, the fluid stuff, right. All that. We don't do that to our bodies because we're worried we're going to poop too much or maybe have a headache. And so
Right.
all that builds up in our body, and here we are with all of these issues that are taking place, right? Nutrient deficiencies, as you mentioned, from our food, and then of course toxicity from our environment and whatnot. So can you talk a little bit more on that detox? And not that we're going to give any protocols, you guys, okay? Because everyone's different. Yeah. You're going to have to figure out what your issues are, what your toxicities are in your body. You need to know that. And right. Detoxing is something that should happen on a regular basis, at least quarterly, maybe sometimes once, even sometimes people do, 1 day fast a week or something once a month. But, of course, talk to your practitioner about that for what's going on with your health. But go ahead and let's dive a little deeper into the detox component with what you do, and then also with our Lifewave patches.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it is real important. I know there's a lot of people poking fun at detoxing. Let me tell you this. I have a client recently came to me who was barely 50, and she was disabled, couldn't drive, couldn't work. She has a 10-year-old daughter and another 14-year-old in her house. She had been to at least 5 different doctors, specialists and general practitioners. When she came to me, she was referred to me. I didn't know her. She was referred to me by somebody who I didn't even know that had heard about my work. And when I did a AO scan on her, I found out several things I needed to know. But I asked her a question before we started working. I said, hey, of those 5 doctors, did any of these doctors ever do any toxicology on you? Any of them, or any even bring it up? She said, no, not one, not a single doctor. This is scary to me, guys. I recently had an oncologist here in Indianapolis that is supposed to be the top oncologist in this area. And he told a client of mine that sugar has nothing to do with cancer. And sugar is cancer's only food source. And he told her this. Now, I don't know where he went to school. I don't, but it's scary to me. I mean, I just don't get it. I can't believe what I hear. So I'm letting you know that finding toxins is much like looking for parasites. You're going to have them. We're all going to have them. The question is, can we manage them? Is our body healthy enough to manage it? The other thing to know, and you guys, most of the people on the call here have heard that your gut is the second brain. For every 1 signal your brain sends to the gut, there are 9 that go back to the brain. It's a 1-to-9 ratio, guys. So if your gut's a mess, your head's going to be a mess. So most doctors that work from the neck up need a checkup because they need to be working from the neck down. And this is why we're going to continue to have anxiety and depression, and people who don't sleep, and kids that are on medications by the time they're 10, because their gut is an absolute mess. We're supposed to have 5 pounds of healthy flora in our gut. Healthy flora. Most people don't even have 2 because of the antibiotic use and the sugars and all of the acids we eat. There's no way that's going to work. A lot of people have leaky gut. We've heard of that. So like Dr. Stacy was saying, when you look at detoxification, you definitely want to, I'm not the only person who knows how to do this stuff. Okay. Thank goodness, but there is right methods and wrong methods, and there are quick fixes that don't work. If you've broken every health principle known to man for 35 years, and somebody says, here's a bottle of detox tablets. If you'll just go through this bottle, you'll be turning flips by next Thursday. That is not true. That is not true. And I would caution anybody saying stuff like that, even about our patches, that I don't say that stuff. It really doesn't help this company. It's better if you learn and grow in the knowledge of this company and what this is all about, okay? But you can rejuvenate the gut and everything starts to change, because that's where our nutrients come through the villi in the small intestine to the bloodstream, okay? If you can't get those nutrients into the bloodstream, it doesn't matter how good your supplements are. It doesn't matter how organic they are. If you can't deliver them to the cells, you cannot improve. And this is why I believe some people got on board with some of these quote nutritional plans, and they said, Dr. Phil, I tried that. It didn't work for me. So I went back to my medical doctor. Well, the reason it didn't work is because you didn't get the nutrients to the cells, because your gut is such a mess. So gut health is a big deal. You guys know who Dr. Gundry is. You know who Dr. Daniel Amen is by now. Those 2 guys have lectured together, yet they specialize in 2 different areas. Dr. Gundry came from the heart industry. He's one of the top one of the top cardiology surgeons in the world, probably, even working with pediatrics. Dr. Daniel Amen is a brain specialist who actually now specializes in nutrition for the brain. But you know what they both talk about? About at least 50 to 60% of the time I hear them talking, you know what they're talking about? They're talking about gut health. Gut health, gut health, gut health, because they know without it, the heart doesn't work and the brain doesn't work. So I can't encourage you enough to seek out, how can I get my gut healthy from people who know what they're doing? And so let me tell you 5 ways, guys, to pick practitioners. Here's 5 good ways. 5. Number 1, they need to be telling you that your body has no idea how to be sick. They need to understand innate intelligence. You need to hear that language, okay? They need to be encouraging. Number 2, they need to talk about the need for water, clean water, because every metabolic function in the body requires water, every one of them, okay? Number 3, you have to have enzymes to recover from anything. Enzymes are what happen when you cut an apple in half and it starts to turn brown. Those are the enzymes dying. That's called oxidation. Oxidation is why we age, okay? So when you cut a Twinkie in half, does it turn brown? No. In fact, it has a 12-year shelf life. 12 years. Okay, the rule of thumb in naturopathic is if it won't rot, don't eat it. But I've got most people that even complain about buying organic food because they'll say, Dr. Phil, I bought that, but it rots too fast. So I'm going to buy the stuff with the pesticides. Well, keep doing that, then they won't even have to embalm you when you go, because you're going to have so many preservatives in your system. You won't even need any help from the embalming guys, you know? I mean, that's kind of crazy when you think of it. The inconveniences that we complain about just to keep our health, okay? So you have to have enzymes, and they need to be talking about that. Also, another one that they need to be, language they need to be using is nervous system. You have to understand the benefits of chiropractic care, the benefits of getting communication to your organs. Listen, 90+% of the nerves in your spine do not conduct pain. 90+% of the nerves in your spine do not conduct pain. So what do most people say when you say, have you been to a chiropractor? No, I don't have any pain. But the truth is, chiropractors are nervous system managers. They're not pain managers. Although they sell themselves as pain managers, there's only about 6% of the nerves in the spine conduct pain. So you've got to remember, you've got to have communication to organs, and just the weight of a dime on your spinal cord will stop the communication to an organ by 66%. Just the weight of a dime, okay? So we got people who sit at desk all day, their heads leaning over. We've got people who drive trucks that sit on a wallet that's that thick. That is not going to help your nervous system. And then finally, mindset. And I can't say enough about mindset. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If you've got people that go around constantly talking and thinking negatively, and they live in an abusive environment, and a lot of people do these days, guys, they live in abusive environments, and they don't know how to get out because they can't afford to get out. They think, I can't leave, even if I need to leave, because I can't afford to pay my bills. It's a marriage of convenience or whatever. This stress is really, really dangerous to us. In fact, my mentor, Dr. Joel Robbins out of Tulsa, he has a whole manual written on attitudes and health that talk about how we know that anger causes thyroid problems, fear of the future causes lower back problems. People who grieve crave sugar. If you're trying to get somebody off sugar and they're grievers, good luck with that. And in fact, if you work with females that have been abused, especially sexually abused, if they can't get past that, and God help us, that is not easy to do, they probably will not lose weight, because the body's subconscious tells this lady to build fat cells for protection for 2 reasons. One, it's padding, and number 2, in their subconscious, they believe it's dangerous to be attractive. This is true. I've worked with ladies that even if they eat seaweed every day for 14 days, they won't lose any weight. It makes no sense, but it's because that's how powerful our attitudes are. So whenever you're talking to offices, I don't care what their specialty, if they don't talk about those 5 things, you're going to not get fixed. You're not going to get fixed because they're basic principles that we have to address. Principles are first laws. They don't change. Gravity is a first law. Right now, it's keeping you guys sitting down. But if you violate that law, if you step off a 2-story building, gravity all of a sudden becomes an enemy because you violated it, okay? So we just can't violate principles. No matter if a doctor has double PhD and he tells you to violate a principle, you need to be smart enough to tell him, sorry, can't do that. Can't violate that principle, okay?
Okay. All right, so Dr. Phil, we've got about 15 minutes left. And we have some more questions filing in here, but can you explain to everyone, obviously this is what our patch looks like. Can you talk to them a little bit about this being non-transdermal and how this works with the body's light? How do you explain this to someone that says, well, how does this patch work?
Well, here's what I tell people that really want to dig into this further. There's so many great videos available with even David talking about this and breaking it down little by little, even some that are doctor worthy, meaning anybody, scientist, whoever, they're not that long. He's got one that's only maybe 37 minutes long where he addresses this on a doctor's level, scientist level. He does a fantastic job. But here's the best way that I would explain it. Start with things people already believe. They already believe that there's probably something not too good about these things, being in our energy field and around us. Anybody who does muscle testing where they're having somebody put their arm out and push on their arm to see if they can lock their shoulder, if you take a cell phone that's active and turned on and you bring it into the body's energy field when they have their arm out, they will not be able to hold their arm up just because of the EMF fields. Okay. Now that's what X49 is for, is to cancel those EMF fields. If you start with things people already are wondering about, like, hey, I live next to one of these electrical plants, and I've read how those things are probably not good. If you'll start by helping them see that this is real and true, then they won't have so much trouble with this patch. But right now, the patch just seems like, a Band-Aid. You just put it on and somehow placebo, you end up feeling better. But this is actually measurable. In fact, if you were to take a Kirlian photography picture of the body, and then you were to put an X39 patch on and retake the photo, you would see changes in the energy field just from that alone. Okay. But the patch is photomodulation. It's not something David invented. It's something that he utilizes in his technology that's been around for a long time. But you can look that up and study photomodulation. The reason I keep saying these things is we need third-party validation. You see, if we don't know how to give people third-party validation, they just think that you're on this one-way street trying to sell something. You got to sell something, got to sell something, got to sell something. That's not a good relationship to have with your friends and family that you're trying to show things to. Okay. So that's how I do it. I help people get their mind working, because I don't know what you think, Dr. Stacy, but I believe that people have checked their brains at the door. I think sometimes they don't turn their brains on. I mean, it's crazy to me that you walk into an office and this doctor, you're going to hand him your health without even thinking about what he's saying to you. It's pretty scary. Just like a doctor that says sugar doesn't have anything to do with cancer, just because he has paper on his wall and a stethoscope around his neck doesn't mean he's right. The things I'm teaching you tonight, it doesn't mean I'm right. I'm asking you to dig into what I'm saying and find out if it's true. Do your own due diligence. Think about what I'm saying. Dr. Phil might be wrong, but you need to look into it. So that's how I handle it. I don't really start just trying to talk about just the patches. I try to go to third-party validation and help people understand this is not transdermal. There is an energy field. We can see it. We can measure it. It's not new. It goes all the way back to scientists that you already know who their names are, and just see if you can get them to turn their brain on. That's what I do. That's what I do. Yeah.
And I think too, Dr. Phil, there's today's world we live in. There's so much information out there, and there's so much that's contradicting. It can be overwhelming for people. I follow this doctor and he teaches this, and this makes total sense. And then, oh my gosh, I love this doctor and what he teaches online, and I watch his videos or I've read his books, and this makes sense, but it's opposite or different from what this one's saying. So what's best for me? And I find with people that, years ago, 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet. 15 years ago, we didn't have the internet. It didn't exist like this. And so you just couldn't go to Google, search everything and find out, whoever paid the most to get their stuff published at the top, right? So you Google something and it's like whoever paid the most to get it up there. It takes time to read books. It takes time to do research. It takes time. And sometimes when people don't feel well, they don't have the energy or the wherewithal to dive in and dig in and really try to figure it out. And not that our population of Lifewave brand partners are here, of course, to try to diagnose people or figure out what's going on with them by any means. We do have to take our health in our own hands, and we do have to be responsible for ourselves. But sometimes people don't have the energy or the ability or even the cognitive function to be able to do that. And so we do our best to say, hey, you gotta take your, matters in your own hands. Because like you said, emergent care is needed. It is 100%, we want it, right? We
Yes.
want in a life-threatening situation, we want a doctor. We're not going to put, when I get messages and say, well, so-and-so is on their way to the hospital and they're having heart issues and we think they may have had a stroke, what patch would you use? And I'm like, the doctor in the emergency room is going to do
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Discuss what patch for a potential heart attack or stroke. So, if you got an X39 on, great, fantastic, but you need emergent care. And so, looking into their health and looking into being their own diagnostics and finding the people that can help them, like yourself and like other doctors that are interested in really diving in with people and taking that time. It does take time to learn. And we do know that we're all different. We all have different metabolic profiles. We all thrive in different types of, environments on our insides with the foods that we eat. Obviously, like you said, the more light, the better. We want that light coming from our food, from our water, from everything we're doing. And those things have been, right? Because of the world, the United States specifically, that we live in and what their underlying agenda is, unfortunately.
Well, just one more thing I want to say, and that's so great what you just said there. It's so great and so true. Two things. One, just a reminder, if the body, if it's innate intelligent, can't use something, it's worthless. So the body's doing all the work, whether it's a vitamin C or a multivitamin or the patches, the body does the work. It's just, these are tools. And it's great to know that light is one of those tools that we just, honestly, I believe many people purposely wanted this information buried. They don't want us to know about this information, okay? And I saw a post just a second ago about somebody who has a friend who used the patches for 10 days and started having problems rather than good things like aches and pains and hair falling out. That's very common because of the ability of the body to detox. When you start detoxing, guys, I mean, the hair follicle can get loose. I have this happen a lot when I'm putting people through metal detoxes. Their hair starts falling out. And then they, especially if their ladies are like, I'm out, I'm not doing this, I can't deal with this. And they don't understand the hair is going to grow back. They just have to get these metals out of their body. When you start detoxing, things are going to change and they're not always going to feel good right away. It's much like people who have to face crisis. If you've got to face an attitude in your life that needs to be faced, you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to want to face that attitude problem. It's not going to feel good. But you're going to need to do it in order to heal. And so when people, this is why also you need to get away from the pharma mindset of, oh, I had a headache, so and I took this drug and my headache went away. Hallelujah. That's what I wanted. Well, no, because you don't have a drug deficiency. No one has a headache because they have a Tylenol deficiency. They don't have an aspirin deficiency. There's no such thing as a drug deficiency. So maybe for another podcast, I'll explain how that happens because I can tell you how those work. But I want to say, if you don't explain ahead of time that the body has to take time to recover and heal and get a broader picture, people are going to use this patch just like they would a bottle of medication. If they don't feel super good after they put it on, they're not going to give it half a chance. They're going to say, in fact, I felt bad, or it was really weird, I broke out in a rash, or like I said, my urine got really dark and smelled really strong, and oh my gosh, I'll never wear these again. That's why it's so important that they understand the truth about wellness, or else I think you're going to lose part of your participants in this process.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So someone's asking, what is the mechanism of action in the patch? So inside of this patch, in the white part, in that disc that's in there, that's what David's invented. And that is actually a crystal lattice structure. And that structure, that lattice structure is reflective. It's made up of a proprietary blend of organic amino acids, oxygen, water, sugars. Not things from your kitchen, right? These are molecules that form together. They're called chiral stereoisomers. They form together to form a lattice. And that lattice is inside of here. So you heard Dr. Phil talking all about the body. We are light. We emit light. And that light that's measurable hits this patch and reflects back into the body a very specific wavelength of light. Depending on the patch, there's a different lattice structure in each patch. So it's reflecting a different wavelength of light. that wavelength of light then elevates a specific peptide in the body or triggers a specific biochemical reaction inside of the body, a process like beta oxidation, for example. And so each patch does something different, activating a different peptide or process inside of the body. And that, of course, causes a chain reaction of what sets the body in motion to be able to help it recognize that homeostasis state again. And it takes time. It is not a, like you just said, Dr. Phil, it's not a quick fix. This is not, I mean, Icewave is, put your Icewave on, no problem. You have pain, slap on that Icewave. We'll open up those energy channels and get rid of your pain for you. But when you're looking at actual repair and regeneration, that's going to take time. It compounds over time. We put this patch on, say, for example, X39 in the morning. We put it on, we brush our teeth, we leave it on 12 hours, we take it off, and we throw it away, or we can put it on our pets, like the one snoring at my feet right now that needs to stop snoring. But we take it off and we put on, 12 hours later, we put on a brand new one. And we do it again day after day, week after week, month after month. So it's a consistent thing that we do. This tool in our toolbox is something that we're doing consistently, just like we're eating clean, healthy food every day. We're drinking clean water, all the things that Dr. Phil talked about. We're monitoring our thoughts, our mindset, those emotions, dealing with things so that our environment inside can be the most healthy and productive possible. But it is a lifetime. It's a journey. It is not a, oh my gosh, woke up here, I've had this car 40 years. I guess I better change the oil and expect it just to like run like it's never been made.
That's right. Yeah. And
do a lot more maintenance to that car than just an oil change if you've never done anything in 40 years to it.
Yes. And David has made it clear many times in the meetings that if you're low in minerals, and almost everybody is, by the way, guys, and if you don't hydrate well, and hydration isn't just water, sometimes you have to put some Celtic salt into your water. About a third teaspoon per 20 ounces is a good ratio just to get some great minerals. The patches don't work as well. And that's just the way that we have to learn. One more thing I want to say before we finish tonight, just to let you know how smart this body really is, because everybody knows about they've heard about the gout, and you may not know that it's caused by uric acid being too high in the body, but the doctors don't really understand why that the ankle and the big toe start having problems from uric acid, because they haven't figured out, like, why does it end up there? Like, of all the places it could go, why does it go there? Well, it's because, guys, it's the body making that decision, not anything else. Uric acid is very toxic to the heart. So knowing what I've taught you about innate intelligence and how smart the body is, where do you suppose the body would put uric acid? Where do you suppose the body would put it if it's very toxic to the heart? It's going to put it the farthest place away from the heart it possibly can. And that's exactly what's happening. And that's just one simple illustration that'll help you understand how important it is to know that this body has to be married to whatever technology that you're going to use. It has to be married to it in a way that it can use it. And so, I think it's great that we talked about several aspects of how to get these tools to work the best they possibly can. Hopefully we've gained some more insight on this, and going forward, I'm honored to help further if I can, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Phil, for being here tonight. The comment section, I'm sure, as you've seen, has blown up all night with everyone. Just so grateful for the information that you shared and how you poured into our Lifewave community, and just to really expand their knowledge and understanding and awareness of health, what's going on out there right now, and to take control of your own health, take control of your journey, find someone to partner with, find a doctor practitioner. I've shared his site a lot in the chat, and of course I'll put it in the descriptions as well if you want to reach out to Dr. Phil. But please know that we are so grateful for you taking the time to be here. Really appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you on the doctors panel in a couple weeks in Orlando with Dr. Jerry as well too, and many of our other doctors that are flying in for that event. So thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you, Dr. Phil, and we will see you all next Tuesday. Bye, everyone.